All right, now this is part two of the case of the mysterious visitors, or the visitors case. Now, all three of the men are standing there in shock. They're traumatized by what they had just witnessed, but they're still grateful that the man on the opposite side of the blue line warned them not to cross it because it likely saved their life. So now, as they're standing there just trying to figure out what's going on, exactly why this blue line is here, and what's going to happen moving forward, back inside of the house, Ellen Chenoweth, the mother in law, Valeria Shanley, one of the wives of the neighbors, and Donald Kelly's wife, who shall remain nameless, are inside talking. Now, at this point, they're obviously freaked out as well. They don't know what's going on outside. They're still worried about Arlo and what's going to happen to them as well. So they're sitting there trying to remain as calm as possible. They don't have anything but liquor and good conversation to try to pass the time. They're drinking, and this is when Ellen and Maggie are like, hey, you guys need to just stay here for the night. We'll figure it out in the morning. Now, for Valeria, one of the neighbors, that's a good idea. She's down with that. But Donald Kelly's wife is not going for it. She's ready to go. She's nervous. Obviously so. Things are just really weird right now. She'd rather get home, try to find help, and figure it out tomorrow on her own way. Now, at this point, the women are trying to talk her down, but she eventually takes her dog and they leave. Now, by this point, the man on the opposite side of the blue line is gone, but this leaves James, Donald, and Reuben outside trying to make sense of everything. And this is when they start to see Donald's wife walk out with the dog. Now, she's hauling ass, right? She's just ready to go. She's got a lot of anxious energy and she's walking very quickly towards this blue line on the ground. Now, the closer they get to this blue line, the more the men are trying to dissuade her from crossing it, but she's just not having it. Now, again, as I've stated, the pets, the animals on this farm are spooked by something. And so the closer that they get to this blue line, the more resistance the dog here is trying to give her. And she's not having it. She's going home. The dog is supposed to be her protection, her bodyguard, but the dog is not trying to go. And eventually the leash gets away from her and she's like, you know what, screw you, stay here. She keeps walking. Now, the men are desperate at this point. They're trying to run to her to get to her. They are actively running at her to try to get her from going over this blue line. And luckily for her, her husband does get a hold of her. But again, she's not having it. She wants to go and go right now. And so she fights him off. She's resisting and she falls over the line. Now, as this is happening, obviously her husband reaches for her. And this is where things go from bad to worse. Now, the husband who reached his hand over the line started to see the hand basically disintegrate, right? It just started to melt the flesh off of the bone in one of the most graphic pictures I have ever seen. Now, for those who have a weak stomach and are uncomfortable, I have to caveat this next image. It is extremely graphic, but for those who don't mind, I'm going to show it. If you do mind, go ahead and scroll now because I'm about to pull it up. Now, like I mentioned, the husband basically lost his fingers, or at least the flesh on his fingers. They disintegrated, but the wife suffered an even worse fate. As soon as she stepped over the line, or I guess she rather fell over the line, her body started to disintegrate on itself. The flesh fell off of the bone. It was like she got hit by some high temperature blast all at once. It contorted her and basically fused her to the ground, much like it did to the dog earlier. And now the men, traumatized from the dog earlier, are obviously even more shocked. This is a trauma like no one else has ever seen. And the wife is dead, right? There was nothing they could really do to stop her, but now there's one dead and one injured, and they're stuck on this farm with no cars, no phones, no electricity, and no signal, and things just get worse from there. Now, the case picks up days later. All of the families at this point have just agreed to stay on the farm until further notice, or at least until they can figure out how to escape. But during this period, Arlo gets really, really weird. But after the events in the forest, things got really dark for him. He started reading words in the dictionary for fun, words that 10-year-olds really can't comprehend, but he had masterful comprehension of all of them. This is when he also starts referring to himself as harbinger. Now, a harbinger is somebody who brings bad news, so this is not a positive thing for the family. Now, the only people he seems to be really communicating with at this time is his sister Meryl and her kind of sort of boyfriend Nicholas, somebody she doesn't want to admit she has feelings for, but definitely kind of does. Anyways, so Nicholas is the only person who is actively believing Arlo as he's talking. And one day, Arlo says something that made the hairs on their neck stand up, gave them goosebumps. He tells his sister Meryl and her boyfriend, not boyfriend, Nicholas, about the assassins. And he states that the assassins are coming and that they need to hide. Now, obviously, Meryl is like, you need to chill out. That's super weird. We're not going anywhere. But Nicholas, the not boyfriend, is like, well, actually, I think we need to listen to him considering everything that's happened recently. If he says he can get us to safety, we're going to trust him. Now, again, Arlo has been a bit off, but not crazy. He just seems like a different version of himself, but he does seem good natured, kind of, I guess, if you could consider it that. He does seem good natured. So he compels them to follow him, and they find themselves in the woods where he went missing. And as Meryl, Nicholas, and Arlo get deeper into the woods, they see this crescent moon shaped shrine, I would call it. And surrounding the shrine are a bunch of dead animals: a fox, deer, rabbit, a bird, all as though they just fell doing what they were doing. But in the center of this crescent moon shaped shrine is a bowl shaped rock with this oil slick goo inside of it. The same oil substance or oily substance that was reported by his mother days earlier when she looked into his eyes. Now, at the same time, the line outside of his house is still very much there. They're still very much prisoners of this farm. But at this time, the story is still very much unfolding. We don't have much information on it, but I want to know what you guys are thinking. What happened at the Chenoweth farm? What is going on? What happened to Arlo? Why is there this line? What could it be? Is it radiation? I don't know. But if you want to look up more information on this case, check out the Peacock series Teacup. You can find it on the Peacock app or maybe for free on the Tubeview if you look hard enough. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I will see you guys in my next video.